Hey, welcome back, guys, to my channel. A lot of my subscribers said, hey, they like a lot of beginners, Node.js developer. They would like to learn about Node and how to start from the beginning. A lot of them have requested me to basically create a very simple static web server in Node.js. So I have decided to in this video tutorial, so I will go from the very scratch, how to start from the beginning, down from downloading software to basically writing very simple static web server that is able to serve HTML, CS, I mean like Java, basic infrastructure of the web, for example, HTML, CSS, images, videos, and stuff like that. Okay. So this tutorial going to be basically you can follow along. It will be kind of like going to be slow. I will be explaining each term as I write it, and so basically by the end of it, my goal is you should have basic understanding of how to create a very simple static web server using Node.js, applications. Anyway, so this is our end goal. Very first thing in this, we want you to download and install Node.js application if you do not have it, and then you can write your code anywhere. It doesn't really matter. You can even use a Notepad++ or even Node, even like text editor, any text editor, doesn't really matter. But I will be writing the Visual Studio, my code in Visual Studio Code. It is very it's an open source editor. You can download and play with any environment, whether it's you writing code in Windows or Mac, or it doesn't really matter, wherever you write your code. So to start with, you need these two software. Go ahead and very first thing, go ahead and download the very most recent version of Node based on your environment. In my case, it is Windows 64, which I have already downloaded, so I don't have to do it again. And then once it is all downloaded and installed, very first thing you're going to do, open your command prompt like that. And then from here, you can see whether Node installation was successful or not. Just say Node and ask for the version number here. If the installation was successful, you will see something like that, depending upon whatever version of the Node that you installed. In my case, it's version 12.18.3. The other thing Node does by default is basically it also installed another module called Npm. You can also find out what version of Npm it has installed by typing npm.version command. Of course, if the node is not successfully installed, you don't see when you type npm, it doesn't know what that command is. Assuming the installation was successful, you would have npm also. So what is the npm? So basically npm is a package manager, meaning like our application consists of large amount of external module, internal modules, whatever, right? We will, as a developer, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, because other diligent developers have already created modules or the source code that we need in a form of module we would like to utilize as much as possible, right? So to basically to have those modules into our project, we will be using npm to download whatever module we need from the repository. Just like any programming languages, for example, if you're from Python, they have something called pip, or if you have like Visual Studio .NET developer, then you use a NuGet package manager. For Java, we have a Maven, or stuff like that. It's the same thing. So basically, npm is the same thing for Node application development. All right, that is all you have to know in there. All right, let's go ahead and create our project here. I'm going to go into my C drive. I have folder called repos. I have some, say, a node projects here, and then I'm going to create a directory called project 3, and let's go in here, project 3. All right. I don't have that anything in this directory. This directory is right now is empty. So now all the software that we need is already been installed. So in this particular time, I'm going to call npm init. Basically, we want to initialize our project here. To do that, we're going to call npm init command. And when we do that, it basically asks for certain things about the projects, so just hit enter. And let's say package name, let's say simple web server. Version is 1.0.2. If you're satisfied, just say okay. Description, if you want, like simple web server example. And do you want to have the index file as a starting file? Entry point is index.js. Just write down, I don't know. Okay, test command, I don't care about. I'm not creating any repository, just say enter, enter, enter. And it just basically creates a file here. And then are you happy with this file? So basically the idea is it's going to create a file called package.js file. Package.json file. That's where all the files, all the module that we download later on, that's where it will go as a dependency. All right. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead in this particular directory. I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code. There is a command, very nice one, says a code with a dot. It can open Visual Studio Code. The Visual Studio Code editor that we downloaded earlier. All right, so our project right now is basically empty. Only file we have is a package.json. Okay, you can look it into package.json. It's a very simple JSON file. Whatever we type there, So very first thing, let's go ahead and add a file here called index.js file. Okay. So basically we are creating a HTTP server. So basically, just like any programming languages, Node also has a lot of built-in modules that we can tap into. One of the built-in module is HTTP. How do we obtain that in our project? We're going to use a method called require. And then we're going to specify the module that we need here. All right, so you might be wondering where this HTTP comes from. Basically, what happens is that all the basic library or the module is automatically downloaded when we installed our Node application. The Node application in our computer, in our system, right? So some of the built-in block. We also would be manipulating the file. So we also, let's go ahead and require file module related to file manipulation. That is given by the fs string. And then you'll be using the path module. So let's also go ahead and require path. And then we also need some of the properties from the URL module. So let's go ahead and require that module also. And then there is one library called MIME. Basically, this library allows us to find out what kind of file type it is, text or whatever, basically MIME type. Okay, so right now, these are the different kind of dependency we have with the Node modules, right? So I think this MIME might not have by default it's downloaded, but so if it is not, then we can go into our console here and we're going to say, all right, npm, go ahead and install this module called MIME. This is the command we're going to use. So basically it goes into npm repository and it's going to install the MIME module in our project if it's not already not there. Let's see what happens when you hit this one. A lot of changes happens in our project. I'll show you. So what it did is by default it added the Node modules here. We didn't have this one before. And then inside this module, basically now we have a MIME here, the module that we need. And then all this you might be wondering here. And if this MIME has other dependencies, it automatically basically download all the dependency of the dependency basically creating the object graph, nested object graph. That is about that. And then not only that, it also added this package.log.json file, and then here it also modified our package.json file. It added this node, as you can see. It basically added this right here, this dependency. Basically saying, hey, you have this module combined with the current version is 2.5.2. Okay, that is what the command did. All right, let's go back into our index file and write more code. So let's define a variable called static server. And now we're going to use our very first module, HTTP. It has a method called create server. We're going to tap into that method to create our very static server. So this guy takes two parameters. It's a request and response. So basically it takes a callback function containing two parameters, request and response right here. Just like that. Here's our method, right? So at this point, let's see if you want to see what's really going on. Let's write down what is there and the request. It's basically a JavaScript object, but this method up to now it doesn't really do anything yet. We need to call a listen method so that the server basically can return the incoming request. So when you listen, you're going to specify the port where you're listening. Let's say I'm going to say listening to 8006. All right. Till now, this application doesn't really do anything anything yet. But however, it should be. If you come in here, let's see. Console, we can say, all right, server is listening in the port 8006. Very simple, just like that. Let's go ahead and save. Let's see, we can run this node application now. So we go into here. So now we have index file, some node modules. Let's ask the node to run any JavaScript file. You're going to type node command followed by the name of the file that you're running, right? In this case, this. And if I say, okay, server is listening on the port 8006. We don't know if it's running or not. Let's see. HTTP localhost 8006. So that means like our code is basically working. So basically what this was, if you look at it in the console right now, it's kind of neat. So what is spitted out is basically, all the method and all the, it spit out that one, and then it basically all the method, everything that corresponding to the request informations is basically printed out, all the method that it has, So that means like our code so far is working. That's all I wanted to show you. So I don't want to, basically I outputted all the structure of the request object. Let's go ahead and get rid of that one. Now it's good. This very first thing we can do, like when the request comes in, somebody comes into our website, let's put how to handle the basically homepage, just to do that. Let's see. You can say if the request, this request object has a URL property, meaning that whatever the URL of our website is, if the URL is / this means the home page of our application, we're going to write some information to the user. Hey, welcome, or whatever. Let's spit out some basic HTML. We're going to say on response, we're going to write header. Set some header. One of the header is a content type. We basically say what kind of content you will be providing. This is the content type header. And the content type we're providing would be text HTML, okay? And to our response, we can just write HTML here. You can tap into this write method. And let's give some HTML. Hello world from a static web server. Okay, just like that. And then it's very important, then you have to end this response right here. Okay, so everything is good. We should at least be able to see this when the request comes in to our home page, / is known home page. So basically we should be able to see this HTML. Let's see, we can test it now. Save everything, and then let's close that and run our file again. And then basically it's already, as soon as we refresh right here, the world from a static web server is that hello world from the static web server. Okay, now we were able to handle basic our home page. So now we should be able to, for example, our next goal is basically to be able to handle any images or any videos or whatever. Okay, so to do that, let's close that, and then I'm going to make a directory here called public. All right, it just creates a public directory here, and here we'll have our basic HTML page here. Let's say new file, first HTML. Very simple. Let's say the contents are coming from the HTML page or something like that, just to, all right. All right, so of course right now our application cannot serve the HTML page. Even if we run this one here, sorry, that's not what I meant to do. The second command, let's run this application, and let's modify this to be, let me look at the structure up. It's good, public dot, is the name of the file, first HTML. So it is spinning right now. It cannot handle that information. As you can see right here, is doing nothing, and we cannot handle the request because it doesn't know how to do it. So it is in the limbo. All right, let's see now how we can modify so that it can handle a file like that. Go to our index file here. Let's define a base directory here. In Node.js, there is this global variable called directory name, global structure, a variable, whatever. This gives you the currently running directory information. So just to see, we can say console.log base directory here. Remember, I'm going into basic information. So as I showed you in the beginning of the video, this is targeted for people who are just, starting from basic, learning the Node application. All right, so go into here, close, Control C twice to close the application and run this again. See, as soon as I type this one, it'll give you this currently running directory. It's right here, project res. That's where our content, this is our base directory. All right. once we have this base directory information, we come in here and then we can do concatenation of the file that we'll be looking for. Let's say file path requested file path. We can have path to normalize. We have base directory, and then whatever the user URL, just give the path that the user is searching for. I'll show you what I mean. So if I now do console, this would give us the user requested path. We can know what URL user is typing, right? User is requesting. I'm gonna get rid of this guy here and then save everything, close it, run that file again. See, as you can see right now, it's giving you the entire, this is the file, the user is false HTML, that is a user is requesting. All right. So now let's go back into the code. Now, to be able to serve that content from the HTML, we have to do a couple of things. We have to do find the file in our search system. We gotta read those files. Read the file and tap into certain events such as on, error, etc., and return the result. Return the content to the user and handle errors along the way. Something like that. These are the tasks we have to perform, okay? Now we know the user basically requested this particular path. To see whether the path actually exists or not in our system, we will have to, we're going to use this method called, remember we also use to see the file manipulation, we have a file stream, we require that. And there is a stat method. This method takes the requested file path and then callback function. The pattern it follows is like basically callback function takes two parameters. This error object to handle the error if there is that, right? If there is no error, we get second parameter would have a value here. This is our callback function. This is a structure of this stat method here. Okay? The first parameter must be a file, as you can see when you put the mouse over here. And then the other thing to know about Node.js, especially in the file stream, these are all asynchronous method. These are not synchronous method, meaning like other thing is basically in a synchronous operation, basically if it's a synchronous call, all this code, everything here would be executed before it goes into here. But that's not the case because it's asynchronous code. All Node.js method by default are asynchronous. But like if you need synchronous version, they have a corresponding synchronous method in certain instances wherever you might need. But by default, it is asynchronous operation. All right. The very first thing that we're going to do, all right, if there is error, we're going to handle those errors. Okay. What are we going to do if there is error? We're going to say response. There's method called write head. This is a 404, meaning like response basically file that you're requesting is not here in the system. And then write something, right? Call this a write method. Requested resource is not, or something like that. And then we're going to say, we're just going to end the request right away. Nothing to do. That is that. Okay? That's how we handle the errors. But however, there is no error, else if, and this guy right here, status, is file. There is method called, if it's a valid file here, it's a method. Oh, I'm missing this curly brace. Okay. Yeah. If it is file, then we have to handle it accordingly, right? Okay, let's see now how far. So we have whatever user requested, the file information is right here. And then we call basically a stat method that takes the name of the file and the callback function. If there is error, we handle it here. Otherwise, we can do something which we haven't done yet. Let's go ahead and run our application at this point. We have that server is running on that. And let's handle this and then go into our public.first HTML. Oh, the other thing I wanted to, even though we requested for the first HTML right here, it also, by default, the Chrome browser, it also requests for this favicon.ico favicon file. It is the default behavior of the Chrome browser. So you might be wondering why it is also requesting that another request right here, right? But that's a default behavior in the Chrome browser. I think the IE browser behave a little differently. Okay. The next thing we're going to do, if it's a valid file, or let's see, this is a valid file, we haven't done anything, right? So let's say if it is, let's say I'm going to say file 2, this file doesn't really exist. Oh, our system is not running, is it? Yeah, see right here, because this file actually doesn't really exist. We just have first HTML, but the first HTML2. So it says, hey, I couldn't find that file, and that is handled by our, right here. And then if we look into our network, let's see how does it look. Developer tools, and then is my network and all. See right here, we have a 400 request. That's what we are returning from the server. And then it also, as I told you before, it also requested favicon and this. So far, so good. All right. Now let's see in the case when this thing is valid, how we handle it. We need to find out what kind of file is returning, right? There is a let's do file type. Remember we were using that MIME library before? That has a very nice method called get type for the requested file. This guy gives us the file type. So this one helps us to return whatever user requested the response that way. So we're going to say it's a response, set content type, content header, set the header be content type if the whatever type user requested. I say file type. Okay. That's set header, that's that. The next thing we're going to do is like now we have to read our content, right? So based on our instruction. So to do that, we're going to say, all right, let's define the file, and then this file stream has a create method here. Create read stream, right? So whatever we're reading, we are basically passing the file requested file path here. That's the first thing you can do. And then you're gonna, once you have that defined, you're gonna tap into the event handler that I was talking about. So file, and then here, these are the event here. I'm gonna tap into on method, and we're gonna specify the event here. In the event that we tapping into is open, because that's what we're doing, right? And this guy takes the callback function like that. If we can open that, we can tap into that without any issue. Then we're going to say status code. Basically, HTTP status code is 200. So far, so good, right? That means success. And then we're going to say to this file, it has a pipe method. Into the pipe, we're going to pass our response stream right here, ASP response here. Okay. So basically, we find the MIME type here. We say the content type based on that, given by the whatever it is, whether it's a text, whatever. And then we call from the file stream, we call the create read stream method, pass the absolute path that they are looking for. We tap into the open event on method and say the status means if this is successful, we have a status code 200, and response is pipe into the file stream. That is that, but it's at the same time you also need to handle what if there is a issue. To do that, there is something called error event. You can tap into that guy. In this case, maybe the status might be something else, error, right? 403, and we're going to write something. Requested resource is not, or I don't know, maybe sometime you don't have access to this file or whatever. Let me say file permission issue or whatever, and we're going to end the response to it. It's a valid file, and what if it is not? We have to handle one more situation here, right? Else I'm going to copy this piece of code here. Or maybe like if this is not a file, it means like you might trying to access our directory system or something like, hey, directory permission denied or something. Of course, you don't want to be so explicit in your web application to be have. Of course, you know what it is. So basically, if it is not file, it must be a directory. Then you're going to do that and end it. I think that is all. Now, with these changes, our web server now should be able to handle basic HTML if it exists, any images or any videos and stuff like that. Let's see, let's go ahead and run. We wrote a bunch of code. We don't write any unit tests here, We might have, there's a chance that we might have a syntax error or whatever, right? We don't know yet. So let's go ahead and run this. Let's try to run the valid files and see what happens. the content are coming from the HTML page. That is really, really cool. As you can see here, that's what we have here. The contents are coming from HTML page. And if we look into our network, here is the first HTML. Let's look into the header information here. The request was for this first HTML. It was a GET request, right? And then the server responded with, okay status, 200 is status. And you can see what was all the response was. It is running on this local host, blah, blah, blah. And then all these pieces of information. So far, so good. Let's see basically it should be able to handle images also. Let's see, we can test this one here. Go ahead and close this one. I do not have any images. Let me copy some images in here and put it into. I have some images and videos here, okay? Here's the project trace. That's our project in the public folder. I'm gonna paste these. All right. So here's image folder, and here's our videos. And I have MP file videos here and some images. Let's see it can render those also. Fasting, make sure it's running, and then let me look it into the structure of my code. Okay. Inside the public folder, I have images here, and then I'm trying to return m1.jpg. Here we go. That is the image that I have. It's able to render the image fine. Let's see if it can also render the video. And then I have a videos paste.mp4.
Oh, today we're gonna do some trading.
All right, guys. So this is our basic, writing a very basic static web server purely in Node. Of course, later on I will cover the tutorial. You don't really have to write this complicated code to create a website just purely in the Node, because they have a lot of library called Express.js. Most of the people basically tap into that library to create the server and stuff like that. But now, because I have a subscriber like, hey, I want to know how to write from the basic, from the Node application, create simple content and like that. And I thought about, hey, this is really simple to do it, and that's why I decided to make this video. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching my video and supporting. I really appreciate it, and have fun coding.